Alright, so back to this third black screen video coming off of this mod. I already made the chapter 4, or Jesus Christ, arc 4, Truth and Consequences video. I made the great mod with one major flaw video, which is kind of my overall thoughts and opinions on the mod. Now this is more of a kind of bringing it back to the fourth arc, Truth and Consequences arc. This is kind of an in-universe what next video, right? Basically, the mod in what we knew was going to come out of the Truth and Consequences arc, a lot up to interpretation, right? There were a lot of, unresolved issues, and really the question is kind of what next, right? From an in-universe perspective, what next, right? From the point where the mod ends to realistically the end of high school for everyone, what's going to happen? And that's kind of what I want to answer in this one. I will go through, I don't want to say all the characters. I'll start by going through major characters and like themes, and then kind of get more specific, more detailed. But again, basically, I just want to cover all of that in this video. And, I don't know if I'm going to make another video on this mod. This might be the last black screen video I make. I don't know what I would make any other one on. If I could find a character tier list, that would be actually crazy. I don't know if such a thing would exist. That would be insane. I would need to look that up. Like, that would actually be crazy if it did. That would be, honestly, I would hella do a video on that. But again, we'll see, right? But again, this video is kind of going to go in universe continuation, right? I guess, maybe I make a video on what if things went differently, but I kind of cover that in the previous video. Just if, basically my point being, if Shiro and Kai were slightly better people and weren't the two worst people in the mod, things would have ended up differently for everyone, but who knows, right? But for this video, in-universe explanations for what's next, let's just get into it. So, I feel like first things first, the major unresolved issue is Jeremy, right? Now, obviously, the club and the characters have little faith in Rankin. But at the end of the day, Rankin is a principal. He is a hired position. And unless he commits some sort of, like, let's say, explicit, scandal, right? He's not going to get removed from that position. And despite what the characters think about Rankin, he cut the MC the fairest deal he was going to see. And he just seems to be doing his job. Overall, not that bad of a person. Jeremy, on the other hand, we knew conspired with Kai to win the election, right, to become student council president, and ultimately fill the council with his cronies, and has major dirt on basically every council member to include club president, and basically has seemingly the sole goal of consolidating power under his, under his sort of presidency, right, with the big thing being he's giving legitimacy to a proposal, or sort of, what would you call it, an amendment in the school legislature. Basically, it's like an anti-bullying campaign, but what he's really going to use it for is basically just a sort of police force, right? Or, kind of create a police state there, from what we got in terms of, like, the action being taken on based off that. But, so, granted, do I think Jeremy's a bad person? Like, or, I don't want to say that. But Jeremy, I will say, just because even though he wasn't going to win without the interference of Kai, based on that, he seems to be more focused on just doing his own job, right? Rather than living in the shadow of Ava Ravenhill, which, funny enough, we see come back at the end of the mod. For literally just one scene and then never again. But again, besides the point, right? We'll see there. So, but the big thing with that, right? And what that comes down to is, what about Jeremy, right? In-universe, what happens next, right? What about Jeremy? And again, I kind of fuck with Jeremy. I'm not even gonna lie. I respect him. I think, unfortunately for the characters, and despite what they view about him, there's nothing that can really be done about Jeremy. Kai, as his last loose end, was dealt with. Despite what Kai says, at the end of the day, he has invalidated himself, and it is his word versus Jeremy's. So, and especially since Jeremy played a part in taking Kai down, that looks really good for him and cements him as kind of someone who is opposed to Kai versus someone who took his backing, right? So there's that. And then again, with that, at the end of the day, he still has seemingly full control over the student council and subsequently student body. I don't see anything happening to Jeremy, but also subsequently we talked about how Jeremy, unlike Kai, seemingly wants, like, Kai, he wanted power to be able to take it out on everyone. Jeremy wants power just to have it, right? So I don't really think much would happen and much would change, other than, if you just end up getting in Jeremy's way, right, you would find yourself in a not so great position. But if you just go on and do your own thing, Jeremy won't fuck with you. So seemingly that's kind of the environment that's going to get created within the school, and the reality is there's just not much that can really be done about that. Kai was pretty much really the only person in terms of what he was doing who could have had the potential to take Jeremy down, but obviously Kai himself got taken down, so really Jeremy's in no position to get usurped, right? So Jeremy continues, has a decent, if not good, legacy and moves on to college, right? Now, that's probably the biggest unresolved issue. What about Adrian and Yuri? Another unresolved issue. I hate to say it, because when couples break up, I don't want to say they get together, or at least, here's what I'll say. The mod seemingly kind of semi-resolved the issue with Adrian and Yuri. They spoke again and left off on good terms rather than not so great terms. But at the end of the day, I just hate to say it, I don't think they get back together. I mean, if Yuri is that insistent on being friends with Shiro, their relationship is just simply not sustainable. And that's kind of the reality of that situation there. So I think Yuri remains friends with Shiro. She still remains in contact with Adrian. I don't think anything crazy happens like Yuri, starts dating Shiro, right? I think it's more so just, again, if she wants to be friends with the one person who her boyfriend's not comfortable with her being friends with, their relationship's just not sustainable. That's the reality of it. So I think for that, I think specifically they remain split, but on good terms rather than poor. So there's that issue resolved. And what next for that? Now let's move on, right? What else? Now we can start to get into more. So this is just kind of stuff that came out of the mod. The festival is another example of something that was brought up and never really resolved. Again, it happens. Clubs use it for recruitment. I feel like that's it. It's not a big thing that we need to talk about. It was just something that I felt was weird because it was brought up and then never mentioned. Now let's start to go into some more interesting subjects, right? Charlotte. What happens with her? Obviously, she's institutionalized. I don't want to say she comes back to school. We know she's had her head injuries, and we know that this was a very traumatic incident for her. So the big thing there being, honestly, I hate to say it, she's probably not going to make a return. Her situation is she probably gets homeschooled and then kind of does her own thing after high school. Still probably stays in contact with at least Shiro, but I doubt we really get to see her if it were to continue on, right? I think, based on what she's been through, the reality is that, she's probably, and especially with how her parents are seemingly, her best bet is probably homeschool, stay in contact with Shiro, but she just kind of does her own thing, especially given her head injuries and how it's affected her. There's that, right? So Charlotte. Now let's talk about Sam, right, on a topic of medical condition. I mean, we saw at the end of the mod, she was knocking on death's gate. But the big thing there is she cleared Michael's name, Michael returned to school, again, they're obviously, what would you call it? Again, they're happy to see each other. Really, I think the big question or idea is, does she and Michael end up becoming a thing before she passes? Funny enough, Michael had a conversation with Sayori, because Sayori, it was hilarious how Sayori got him. She's like, yeah, she's so, brave, smart, intelligent. Oh, she's also really pretty. And Michael's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I agree. And he's like, wait, what? That was hilarious. I'm not even gonna lie. That was funny as fuck. But they had that conversation. Sayori's like, well, if you like her, why don't you tell her? He's like, I think we both know why. The question is, do they end up being a thing before she passes? I want to say yes. I want to say they make it through high school, but who knows? She was literally knocking on death's gate by that point in the mod. So Unfortunately, we don't know. I feel like, as opposed with Charlotte, to where we can definitively say she'll probably be homeschooled and probably just remain in contact with Shiro, and then Adrian and Yuri, we can say they'll probably, like just be on good terms, but not end up being a thing again, given Yuri's proximity to Shiro. And we can say Jeremy probably just makes it through without a hitch. I feel like we can't for sure say that that Sam's gonna make it to the end of high school, or that she and the MC become a thing. I feel like that's kind of the reality. Granted, I can say maybe Sam tells the MC how she feels. I mean, because at the end of the day, if she's on borrowed time, better to leave things off, better to leave everything on the table than, or better not to leave things on the table, right? Even if she doesn't make it to the end of high school, hopefully she would at least tell the MC how she feels at some point. And then he can reciprocate, and then, they end up being a thing, right? Good for them. That's Sam. Now, we can get into, like, let's say the anime club, and the literature club. Basically, those two. All right. Literature club remains a thing, right? We have the same four cast of four characters, right? Monica, Sayori, Yuri, Natsuki. And the club is a thing. The reason why I don't include Shiro is seemingly the anime club would reform, or at the very least that group of four would hang out and spend time together. Michael, Kayla, Ruby, and Shiro. Given that Michael made up with Shiro and they all forgive each other for what they did. So, rather, what I originally thought was it was going to be everyone joining the literature club, right? And it ends with, which I feel like honestly would be more fitting, but it seems like the direction the mod went in was, the anime club reforms, right? Or at least it's that group of people who spend time together, right? So, there's that. So, yeah, again, that's, just want to point that out there. What would be a crazy crack, scenario is if Randy joined the literature club, but don't feel like that would happen. And obviously Adrian's not part of it, but there's that. Now we can get into some more specific, like, rather than these general topics or, like, specific characters that we see, we can get into some, like, let's say, we can get into some, like, other, characters specifically, right? I feel like interesting, Kai, right? Kai would be a really interesting case. He gets expelled from high school, goes to our high school, gets bullied, and just has to bide his time through high school until, he does whatever else. We know Kai's brother is in the military. Honestly, as a member of the military, right? Granted, Kai, obviously troubled past, but the military may be what he needs, if not his only option at his point, right? The fact that he's not in jail is a miracle in and of itself. But yeah, Kai, I feel like very likely option, goes to other high school, gets bullied throughout high school, narrowly makes his way to graduate, and probably joins the military because he has nowhere else to go. And that's where his brother went. Feel like that's reality for him. I mean, again, the fact that he's not in fucking prison is astounding. But, I guess good for him, right? So that's Kai. Randy continues to play football. Obviously, he had a stern talking to by his coach, parents, principal, but other than that, no real tangible consequences. Continues playing football. We know he's actually a semi-decent student based on his conversation with Monica. Maybe goes to play football in college, but, other than that, moves on from Kai, makes friends with, let's say, probably, like, the members of the literature club, I don't joining it would be pretty crack-like theory, but, again, probably remains friends with Sam, defending her in that instance, right? We'll see there. Now, Victor's an interesting case because Victor seemingly got an out in all of this. However, without Kai and with Jeremy being, in as great of a position as he is, I don't think Victor tries anything. I think he kind of takes a step back, and just lets things play out and basically has a normal high school experience for the rest of his time. Again, the fact that he got an out is lucky in and of itself. I don't think he would push his luck there as a very practical man. And he just maybe goes on to college. We know he comes from wealth, so there should be no issue there. He just probably his main goal is scrubbing himself of any involvement with Kai there. So Bella, kind of similar deal. The fact that she got an out, I find crazy, but the reality was Valerie was always, who I'll talk about next. Valerie was always going to be the fall guy, given that, again, she was the one who forged Shiro's handwriting however many, the year prior, right? But as for Bella, her big thing is probably, she, I guess, remains friends with Nikki. Obviously she, I guess, is now, resolved of her debt from Victor, continues on to do her own thing. And who knows what she does after high school, right? But probably just her and Nikki remain friends. She resolved of his debt from Victor. And again, similar probably to Victor, tried to scrub herself of any of involvement with Kai, right? Now, as for Valerie, it's a little bit more complicated. Again, given that she ended up being the fall guy, not, again, everything on Kai, right? But she was the fall guy for Bella in that instance. And because of that, she got a tangible punishment. She was what? She was suspended and kicked out of the club and had to go to detention for like a year or whatever. I think Valerie in that instance, just takes it, takes getting kicked out of the debate club, takes the suspension, comes back, goes to detention, and just kind of similar to what I guess Shiro should have done, I guess just keep her head down, sit down, stay quiet, bide her time through the rest of high school, maybe go to college for maybe even law later down the line. But, at least for her high school years, she just needs to zip it and then move on, right? So there's Valerie, right? Any other kind of characters to talk about? Connor obviously becomes the president of the debate club since Monica doesn't go back, since she's now at the literature club, and he's a seemingly good fit. Funny enough, it seemed as though Connor kind of had a thing for Monica, but whatever, right? Better than Shiro, but again, besides the point. I guess, yeah, now let's go into these specific characters. So let's say Chester dies from fucking heroin. All right, who cares about Chester? We're not talking about him. I guess what will be interesting to talk about is let's go into some of these more specific. So for the anime club, right? Shiro's never gonna learn his fucking lesson. But in terms of what we see from him being kind of absolved of, given that Valerie was the fall guy and given that they connected her involvement in the picture gate with Poem Gate, right? That seemingly improves Shiro's reputation in the school, given that now the entire school knows it was Valerie. However, Shiro is still a loser and a nerd. But in terms of what we see from him, he probably just chills with the anime club and kind of, probably goes to college for something math related. Moves on from there, right? As for Kayla and Ruby, they just continue to fuck each other and everything that they can get their hands on in the sex stairway and get STD, AIDS, and die. That crazy. But they finish out high school and I don't know, maybe become content creators or something. They become e-girls. That'd be crazy. That'd be insane. Honestly, I wouldn't put it past them though, given that they're part of the anime club. Michael, I think Michael, continues to hang around the anime club, be friends with them, friends with the literature club, right? Obviously, Sam. I feel like the reality is Sam's passing will have a big effect on him, but that's kind of an inevitability. But it's also something that he's probably needs to get mentally prepared for. But other than that, he just makes his way through high school and goes on and hopefully, maybe reconnects with his father now that he's no longer just living with his mother. And again, so there's all that there. What else? Let's go to members of the Lurch Club, right? Monica, obviously declined to go back to the debate club, but continues to president the literature club, with the big thing there being that, she'll eventually go to college, or seemingly do her own thing, right? All's good there. Same thing with just all the members of the literature club, really. They're all just going to still stick together, be a part of that club. The only interesting one is Yuri. I don't think she gets back with Adrian. I just think they leave on good terms. But everyone just kind of continues to be a part of the club, be friends with each other, and then kind of move on once they graduate, right? And I think that takes care of everyone. I don't really think there's much else to say or cover or go over. Adrian, I guess, is an interesting case. He's funny enough, the one I didn't. Because I just talked about him and Yuri, but not him specifically. Adrian, we know, obviously, Adrian and Kai both, again, came from the same, background, right? Really what differed them is Adrian seemingly, he wasn't publicly humiliated and put down in the entirety of middle school and wasn't bullied for it. B, his parents kind of stepped in and intervened when they realized he was going down a dark path, compared to Kai's, who just didn't care, as well as his brother, who wasn't involved, right? And sister, who he didn't want to get involved. So, again, right? That's the seemingly difference between those two. But now that this is post Kai, Adrian seemingly, lets go and moves on from Kai's incident. Lets go and moves on from Yuri. Develops a healthier outlook in life. Maybe is still smoke buddies with Natsuki, but at the end of the day is kind of able to put all this behind him, move on, and then make something of himself, rather than let this bog him down and drag him down like Kai did, viewing himself as different from Kai in that aspect, right? I feel like really his character is, funny enough, probably the one that has the most opportunity to flesh out. I feel like most of the art characters are pretty straightforward, like, all right, here's what'll happen to them. Adrian is kind of the one where it's like, all right, we kind of don't really know, but again, it'll be interesting to think about. And I think with that ends this video. I don't really know if there's anything else to talk about in terms of, what next. We already kind of went over what if things would be different. I mean, really what it comes down to is if Shiro had never manipulated Charlotte into rejecting Kai and putting him down, humiliating him in front of the whole school, none of this would have happened. Poemgate wouldn't have happened, Picturegate wouldn't have happened, and everyone would have seemingly, I guess the big thing is Jeremy wouldn't have even gotten elected at that point. It would have been Ava Ravenhill, right? Again, really just the interesting thing is most of the events of the story are driven by the feud between Shiro, Adrian, and Charlotte, which goes all the way back to Shiro manipulating Charlotte into putting Adrian down, or putting Kai down, right? But that's just in terms of like different what if, but this is more what next, right? Which there's a lot more to cover. Is just that basically it's really only that one what if, right? But there's a lot more to cover given how much unresolved aspects there were. But again, really the biggest thing there and what we talked about is just basically from where they left off till the end of high school, what's up for the rest of the characters. And I feel like it's mostly obvious for all of them, which is what we discussed. But with that, I think that ends this part. I don't think there's really another black screen video to make on this mod. I made the Truth and Consequences arc video. I made the Great Mod with one major flaw, Thoughts and Opinions video. And now I made the What Next video, right? I don't really think, I swear to God, if there's a character tier list online, I'm going to find it and then fucking, make a video on that. But I guess we'll see with that. With that, I don't really have anything else to say. So, yep, that's it for this one. See you in the next one.